Hello class. Today we're going to talk about the fourth and final entry into our reading portfolio. That is questions and inferences. Similar to the first three, it has the same purpose. We're looking to identify significant pieces of text and explain their significances. Clarify, critique, and remember what is read. Another reading comprehension skill. However, this skill requires us to come up with a question and then, in the end, answer our own question using inferences. The first step is figuring out what is a good question. Along with this video, I will post this handout that lets you know exactly what a good question is. Scroll down on the left-hand side of the video, of the handout, and that'll tell you what you need to know about what makes for a good question. Questions that are good are not easily answered. They have more than one possible answer. They lead to interpretations, pose comparisons, get you emotionally involved. I'll just let you read this handout. Also, over here on the right, talks about what makes for a bad question. All right? So after you create your question, it would be good to go through this checklist and make sure that your question falls here on the left-hand side and not over here on the right. After you've come up with a good, strong question, you're going to make inferences to answer it. An inference is when an author says something without coming right out and saying it, he or she will imply it. When you understand what is implied, you infer. Sometimes you can infer the truth even when the speaker or writing isn't trying to be helpful, just like reading between the lines. Here's an example, a very simple example. At recess that day, Max was the last kid to get picked to be on a dodgeball team. Will picked Shelley for his team, and Matt picked Bill. Max was the last one left. Reading between the lines, what can you infer about Max? Did you come up with the same inference I did? You could infer that maybe Max isn't a very good dodgeball player, or that neither Will or Matt like Max very much. See, the author of this passage doesn't come out and say those things, but we can infer, based on characters' actions, what is going on with Max and his dodgeball skills. The questions are going to be probing, open-ended questions that show that you're thinking deeply about the story, the other side of truth. After coming up with a deep, probing, open-ended question, you're going to answer it. All right? Each question at the end will include a follow-up to keep the reader thinking. And in your answer, you will make 3 inferences based on specific clues from the text and explain the because. So I go back to the novel we read first semester for my question. Does Jonas die at the end of the novel The Giver? Let's look at our criteria for good questions. That question is not easily answered. It has more than one possible answer. It can lead to different opinions and viewpoints. It can make people interpret why something happens to a character or why a character does something. Maybe a prediction of the ending or future problems. Maybe pose comparisons. Helps you get emotionally involved. I won't go through them all, but in my mind, I feel like that qualifies as a pretty good question. The way I answer it is to infer based off of examples from the text. I use a text example here that talks about the ending and where I felt like I didn't think Jonas dies at the end. I felt like here he has a happy ending. I take that and then I explain my inference afterwards. But then my viewpoints on this question shift. I question my initial reaction based off of these lines of text and then make my explanation here. The third text excerpt reinforces the fact that I do believe Jonas dies. And then I explain that inference there. Because my question is a good probing question, it also leads to a follow-up question here at the end. And in the last line, I specifically say what I think happens in those last 2 pages of the novel, that Jonas does indeed die at the end of The Giver. So as you're ready to make a question and 3 inferences for the other side of truth, take the time to read my answer to my question to give you an idea of just what a good question and inference entry into your reading portfolio will look like. Take some time and read this checklist about what makes good questions and bad questions, right? And answer your specific question thoroughly. Good luck. You're almost done with your reading portfolio. You will do 1 question and 3 inferences for your reading portfolio.